Gu Jun lay on the bed, still pondering over those few cryptic sentences. What troubled him the most was that particular phrase. The first disaster is over, the second disaster is coming soon. The first disaster refers to aberrant banyan disease. The second disaster refers to the devastating operation carried out by the operations department this time. It is obvious that the Afterlife Society already knows that he has joined the Bureau of Heavenly Secrets and has calculated that these 3 sentences will be deciphered by him. He was still thinking before falling asleep. How many things did they actually calculate? The next morning, Gu Jun was awakened by a series of knocks on the door. Captain Wang entered and told Gu Jun that the mobile task force members had arrived. He needed to go on a mission and required his anomalous language translation support and medical assistance. Gu Jun had not expected the opportunity to join the mobile task force to come so suddenly. He quickly freshened up before heading out. Gu Jun followed Captain Wang towards the entrance of the isolation area. Captain Wang briefly introduced the situation of the NTF. The leader of this mission is Demon Hunter Group, and the captain's name is Shui Ba, who also came from the investigation department. Captain Wang pointed to the big guy walking ahead. He is Captain Shui. Don't think that he is a big guy and try to deceive him. He is also a very intelligent person. Captain Wang turned around, and after their overnight analysis, they found that Spirit Child did not participate in setting a trap for Lisheng Company. Gu Jun understands clearly that Captain Wang's words, both explicit and implicit, are all warnings to him. At this moment, Captain Shui walked up to Gu Jun and said, "Hey! You must be Gu Jun." When Gu Jun saw Captain Shui's protagonist-like figure, Gu Jun quickly stood up straight and greeted Captain Shui. "Hello, Captain Shui." However, Captain Shui remained silent and stared at Gu Jun, making him feel a bit uncomfortable. Suddenly, he turned around and called out, "Get on the car and let's go! Hurry up!" Gu Jun was taken aback by this. Where exactly were they taking him? Captain Shui stared at Gu Jun, unsure of what he was thinking. On the side, Luo Dan reached out his hand and said, "Hello, little Gu. I'm Sir Dan, responsible for medical care in the team." At this moment, Captain Shui suddenly turned around, got on the car and said, "Hurry up, Sir Dan." Sir Dan was taken aback. "Captain Shui, are you going to introduce our team members?" Captain Shui turned around and said, "We'll get to know each other once we meet. Gu Jun, you and Sir Dan will be in the same car." After Sir Dan greeted Gu Jun, he got into the car. The convoy raced all the way. Gu Jun changed into a pair of military boots in the car, and Sir Dan told him. This was said by Captain Shui and Fire. Fire is known to be sharp-tongued but kind-hearted. Gu Jun nodded, and Sir Dan continued with the introduction. The one who was driving earlier and handed you the boots is Zhang Fire, his assistant. His nickname is Fire. The medical mission for this operation will rely on those 3. Gu Jun asked Sir Dan where they were going. Sir Dan adjusted his glasses and said, "Little Gu, do you believe there are supernatural things in this world?" Without waiting for Gu Jun's answer, Sir Dan awkwardly said, "Sorry, I don't have the authority to tell you here. But once you're there, you will know. Be prepared mentally." Gu Jun didn't ask further. After passing a sentry post, Gu Jun looked at the huge advertising billboard outside the car. He finally knew that this is ancient Banyan village. When the convoy stopped, Sir Dan opened the car door to invite Gu Jun to get off. This is the place where the aberrant banyan disease epidemic first occurred. Gu Jun looked at the distant giant banyan tree and speculated that it should be the source of the virus. Just don't know if it is still contagious. Why hasn't it been destroyed yet? He suppressed the doubts in his heart. Gu Jun and Fire followed Sir Dan. The 3 of them unloaded the medical supplies from the car and counted the quantity. At this moment, Captain Shui walked over and asked Gu Jun to go with him. The 2 of them walked all the way to the quarantine zone. Captain Shui handed a telescope to Gu Jun. He asked him to look at the location of the tree hole under the banyan tree. The entrance of the cave was marked with many red handprints. Captain Shue told him that these handprints reminded him of the Cueva de los Manos. But the 16 handprints here represent 16 people, which is currently the maximum capacity of the tree hole space. Gu Jun was surprised. Tree hole space? What does that mean? Captain Shue looked at Gu Jun and said, literally, it means inside the tree hole, there is an abnormal space that cannot be explained by science. After saying that, he turned to the side and said, Hey, Lin Mullen the great scholar, why don't you come and explain this little word? Lin Mo did not come over, but decisively extended his middle finger to Captain Shue. Captain Shue laughed heartily, estimating that even if Einstein came, he wouldn't be able to explain clearly. Captain Shue explained to Gu Jun that the tree hole is like a wormhole with another space inside. Another space? This made Gu Jun think of a parallel world. Captain Shue told him that at the beginning, they tried many methods. The drone sent in would lose contact immediately. Later, they found out that even those signals couldn't get in. But the information from inside could still be transmitted out through ground wave radio. However, the signal could only be received near the cave entrance. Later, they also tried sending animals in with devices, but they soon lost control. And the images they captured were all distorted, ultimately yielding no useful information. Until last week, when his team entered the tree hole, it was then that they discovered the spatial capacity limit of the tree hole. Captain Shue told Gu Jun that there were foreign texts in the space that he could understand. And this is the main purpose of asking him to come, to enter there to translate the foreign texts. Gu Jun asked Captain Shue why he didn't write it down directly. Captain Shue glanced at Gu Jun. This is the most absurd thing after they entered the space, although they could see those foreign characters. But they seemed to have lost the ability to distinguish those foreign patterns, and could not write them down. Gu Jun's heart tightened. Were those foreign patterns enchanted with indescribable curses? I thought the foreign abilities would provide me with security, but unexpectedly they led me into danger. Gu Jun smiled bitterly as he put on protective gear, picked up the notebook and pen on the table. He recalled what Captain Shue had said. They would enter the tree hole in an hour, urging him to hurry up and write a farewell letter. Every member of the Demon Hunter group has to write one, leading Gu Jun to have a bad feeling about it. Last time it was writing a will, while Gu Jun was getting ready to take the elixir. Who knows how many more times he will need to write it. Gu Jun handed the will to Captain Shue's kid. I'll emphasize it again. After entering the abnormal space, any one of us could have an accident. If you can remember anything else, tell us quickly. After finishing speaking, Captain Shue looked at Gu Jun for a moment. Then he turned to inform the team to prepare their equipment and get ready to depart. Gu Jun felt a tightness in his chest and told Captain Shue that the creature with rib-like protrusions on its chest might be related to Laisheng Company. Captain Shue asked him for the reason. Intuition. After seeing the banyan tree hollow before, he had a very strong intuition that the alien might have come through the banyan tree hollow from another space. Gu Jun could only find such a reason. Reflecting on the above, conduct a new investigation after Captain Shue arranges it. He stared at Gu Jun and asked if there was anything else. Gu Jun shook his head, and Captain Shue did not insist. He turned and called Lu Yuning to bring something over. Lu Yuning came over aggressively. He slammed a mini submachine gun on Gu Jun's chest. The usage is very simple. Pull the safety catch here, load the gun, aim, and shoot. She finished speaking, turned around, and walked away. Remember, do not point the gun at your own people. If I see it, I will kill you directly. Gu Jun was stunned by these words. Captain Shue watched Lu Yuning walking away. Her boyfriend had previously participated in the operation to besiege the Laisheng nest, and was killed by a giant insect by a fatal blow. Gu Jun knew that there were many people in the Bureau of Heavenly Secrets who suspected him of colluding with the Afterlife Society. The Demon Hunter group set off, with Captain Shui leading the way. Everyone arrived in front of the big banyan tree hole. Newmanhwa checked the data feedback inside the hole, while Gu-jun looked at the red handprints and asked, "Sir Dan, this is too coincidental. The team of 15 people plus him makes 16 people, which matches the maximum capacity of the abnormal space." Sir Dan comforted, "Don't overthink it. Little Gu can handle unexpected situations. More people make things easier to handle." At this time, Captain Shui issued an order for everyone to put on their masks and prepare to enter. Gu-jun puts on his mask and walks into the cave, watching as they are one by one swallowed by the halo of light in the tree hole. He couldn't help but feel a sense of alarm. If he's going to die, then so be it. He gritted his teeth, closed his eyes, and charged in. Gu-jun feels like he is walking alone in a dark corridor where all the sounds have disappeared. There is only a faint light ahead. He moves towards the light. When the sensation under his feet changed, he saw Sir Dan waiting for him in the thick fog. Behind the crowd was a desolate banyan tree. Gu-jun looked at the thick fog in front of him. Is this an abnormal space? Doesn't this thick fog feel very oppressive? Beside him, Newmanhwa looked at Gu-jun and asked, "Last time I came in and stayed for 3 days, I still have a bunch of things I don't understand." Newmanhwa squatted down and grabbed a handful of soil. The soil here is older than anything on Earth, so old that all testing methods, including radioactive isotopes, have failed. Gu-jun was greatly surprised. "Could it be that the alternative space is not on Earth?" he quickly asked. "Dr. Lin, is there a day and night cycle here? Although there is heavy fog here, it seems to have sunlight based on the brightness." "Sunlight?" Newmanhwa laughs. "You think this is outdoors?" At this moment, Captain Shui's voice came through. "Action Group A, Research and Medical, follow me. Action Group B, stay at the entrance." Newmanhwa no longer explains, "Let's go. You'll know in a moment." A few minutes later, Captain Shui stopped and arrived at Gu-jun. He looked at the scene in front of him, and was a little dumbfounded. "This is a wall of unknown height." Newmanhwa reminded Dr. Gu that describing it as just a wall is not accurate enough. It should be said the entire different space. "It is all wrapped within this wall," Newmanhwa reminded. "The entire different space is enclosed within this wall." Gu-jun looked at Newmanhwa and asked, "Dr. Lin, what do you think it means?" "The literal meaning," Newmanhwa explained, "is that a circular alternate space with a radius of 1,500 meters centered on the withered tree is surrounded by these giant stone walls." Gu-jun expressed doubt, saying, "This doesn't seem right. Earlier, you mentioned wrapped around, but there is clearly light here. The part of the sky cannot be enclosed." Newmanhwa pressed his forehead. "This is the most bizarre part." According to the unmanned aerial vehicle's trajectory detection, the high wall begins to rise at 800 meters upwards, and the space gradually narrows towards the middle, reaching a height of 1,500 meters at the highest point. Simply put, the top of the space is also enclosed by a wall. I looked around, and where does this light come from? Gu-jun walked closer to the wall. I saw that the wall was covered with red patterns, like blood vessels transporting blood. Captain Shui reminded Gu-jun that your job is not to study these. Can you understand the previous message? Gu-jun followed Captain Shui's gaze upwards, his eyes slightly narrowed. He looked at the strange text above, understanding it. Gu-jun nodded, about to speak out the meaning when suddenly there was a loud rumble, and the boulder with the strange text started moving downwards. Captain Shui quickly ordered everyone to retreat. As the giant boulder sank into the ground, a square opening appeared. At this moment, Action Team B reported that the dead tree suddenly collapsed. The halo and the passage both disappeared. The disappearance of the passage means that no one can return. Captain Shui immediately had Group B come over for a meeting. After saying this, he looked at Gu-jun and said, "Before, all of us had read the strange texts, but nothing happened until you read it, Gu-jun. Captain Shui grabbed Gu Jun by the collar, staring at him sharply, and asked, "What's going on? What does that strange text mean?" "Those who forever rest in eternal slumber are not the deceased. Even death will be obliterated in the eerie eternity." Gu Jun translated the strange text out loud. Captain Shui was startled, and let go of Gu Jun. Old Shui. Lin Mo finished reciting a verse from the Mad Arab. The next second, he rushed to Captain Shui and said, "Isn't this the nameless city from the Necronomicon?" Captain Shui held Lin Mo steady and said, "I'm not deaf." Seeing their reaction, Gu Jun quickly asked Dr. Lin what he said. Captain Shui glanced at Gu Jun. In special circumstances, information that is classified below D level should not be disclosed to personnel below that level. The Mad Arab Abdul al-Hazard is a figure from ancient legends. It is said that he once dreamed of a ruined city called the Nameless City and wrote a book called the Necronomicon. The original is no longer available. The passage you just read is present in all versions. Gu Jun wanted to ask a question, but was stopped by Captain Shui. Now is not the time for discussion. Everyone guards the entrance and waits for Team B. Gu Jun stared into the deep abyss of the cave. Where does this staircase lead to? Suddenly, a bell rang in his mind. The system has released a new task. This is not a good sign. Gu Jun turned his head and asked, "Sir Dan, has Team Xiao encountered any abnormal spatial situations?" Sir Dan told him that they have encountered such situations, but this is the first time for this kind of scenario. Gu Jun suddenly heard Lin Mo's angry roar. It turns out that Captain Shui removed his mask and was smoking a cigar. Captain Shui glanced at Lin Mo and said, "Do your job well. Any signs of life?" Lin Mo looked at the life detector and said, "Not at the moment, but I always feel like something is staring at us." At this time, all members of Team B arrived. Captain Shui was just about to ask about the situation when Lin Mo yelled, "Old Shui! There are vital signs beneath our feet," before the words could even finish. With a loud bang, a burrowing megaworm shot out. Lin Mo was knocked into the air. Both legs were bitten by the giant insect. "Quick! Focus fire!" Captain Shui called on everyone to shoot together. The giant insect writhed in pain from being shot. Lin Mo was thrown out and fell to the ground. Sir Dan was the first to rush up and shout, "Fire!" Little Gu pulled Dr. Lin over. The accident happened too quickly. Gu Jun ran over, but he always felt something was wrong. Yes, as soon as Group B arrived, the giant insect appeared. Is it trying to force everyone to enter the cave together? The ancient banyan tree collapsed without any warning. The light portal leading into the alternate dimension also disappeared along with it. Every word spoken within the Bureau of Heavenly Secrets Emergency Command Demon Hunter Group is turned into a signal, received here and synchronized for reconstruction. Although the restored voice sounds a bit eerie, everyone is listening carefully. The monitoring signal has been cut off since the team entered several caves. Commander Yao and several deputy commanders discussed the situation. Old Yao participated remotely if not on the scene. Minister Ming of the investigative department pondered and said, "There is a strong suspicion that Gu Jun is involved in this matter." After thinking about it, Yao Shenyan said, "We cannot rule out any possibilities, but based on the information we have now, it seems that Gu Jun is on our side." Minister Dong from the research department nodded in agreement. "Now is not the time to draw conclusions. I'm very interested in the verses from the Mad Arab." Deputy Minister Gua of the Nameless City Operations Department stated, "The Nameless City is rumored to be a ruin, but houses extremely magnificent palace complexes. Yet, there is nothing there." Perhaps there was once, but after countless years, it has now all turned into a wasteland. Everyone is contemplating but without any clue. On the other hand, considering exploring the mentioned cave entrance in the current situation seems like walking into a trap step by step. Old Yao Professor Chen rushed in under the heavy rain. "How is the situation now?" Old Chen lost his connection. The signal is temporarily interrupted. The research team member Lin Mo got bitten by a giant worm. Professor Chen turned to Yang Mu and asked about the team's medical conditions. Deputy Minister Yang Mu reported that Chief Physician Luo Dan and nurses Zhang Firefire and Gu Jun can serve as assistants. The giant insect bite injuries can only be treated with amputation, but achieving a sterile operation is difficult. Post-operative infections are very common. Yang Mu shook his head and commented, "Very difficult, very difficult." "It's difficult, but there is still a chance." Old Chen mentioned that Luo Dan is skilled, and Gu Jun can also help. Amputation surgery is not difficult for them. At this moment, the Demon Hunter group's signal has been restored. Surprisingly, the signal is even clearer than before. "What's the relationship between you and Lai Sheng?" "I am a doctor, Dr. Lin. I need surgery now. Please leave." Sir Dan comforts Lu Yuning. "Please calm down and put the gun down first." Captain Shui patted her on the shoulder. "He is right. Now is not the time to discuss these things." Lu Yuning snorted coldly and walked away. Captain Shui looked at Gu Jun and urged him to hurry up. Gu Jun nodded. After tying tourniquets around Lin Mo's legs and administering anesthesia, Gu Jun and Sir Dan discussed the surgical plan. Professor Lin's right leg can be saved. How to find parasites without a microscope. With limited medical resources, amputating the two small legs is the safest option. Previously, I have seen information that these parasitic larvae do not move within 1 hour. They only have the ability to reproduce rapidly after forming cysts in tissues. Larvae do not require the use of a microscope. We aim to clean up the right leg within 1 hour and then amputate the left leg. If it is not cleaned up completely, then amputating the right leg is also not too late. Lin Mo forced a smile and said, "Dr. Gu, you really are an interesting person. Then I'll leave it to you." Mission reward. Gu Jun accepted the difficult mission in his mind because of his experience in the system surgery career. There is a success or failure judgment for the surgery, which made Gu Jun without any worries. 3 people are ready for the surgery. 3 people secure Lin Mo on a sterile cloth-covered box. Tie them together with 4 flashlights to make a simple shadowless light. Sir Dan used a skin stapler to temporarily stop the bleeding on Lin Mo's left leg. After clearing the wound on the right leg, fire thawed the blood blister. "Little Gu, you organize the necessary tools and complete the preliminary preparations," Sir Dan said. "Little Gu has arrived, so let's keep up the good work." After Gu Jun used surgical forceps to clip out a larva, as he expected, there was no sense of adhesion, indicating that the insect was only on the surface. He clipped off one and immediately clipped another. If he couldn't clip it off, he would cut it off with the tissue together. This operation made Sir Dan, an old hand, a little self-deprecating. Dr. Lin held on. "I will definitely help you keep this leg." Captain Shui reminded Sir Dan that it's time. At this moment, Gu Jun extracted the last larva. And Sir Dan only finished slightly later as well. Sir Dan took a moment to catch his breath. "Cleaning is done. Let's start stitching up the wound after tidying it up." The brain system prompts that the parasitic elimination surgery of Gu Jun burrowing megaworm was successful. He receives 55% of the contributions, and Sir Dan receives 40%. Captain Shui is a bit worried. Is it considered a success? It is successful in terms of the program. Sir Dan tells him, is it really successful? It will take a few days to find out. After saying that, he looked at Lin Mo and smiled. "Don't overthink it. At least your third leg is unharmed." Lin Mo, annoyed, raised his middle finger. Gu Jun told everyone that they didn't find any formed cysts just now, and all the parasites have been removed cleanly. The surgery should be very successful. Sir Dan nodded in agreement with Gu Jun's statement. Lin Mo finally relaxed. Lu Yuning whispered, "If old Shui has nothing to do with Lai Sheng, find a way to bring him in after we leave." Captain Shui smiled bitterly and said, "Let's focus on getting out of here alive first." Sir Dan nodded as he looked at Gu Jun's stitched right leg. The next step is the amputation surgery of the left lower leg. This time, Sir Dan asked Gu Jun to be the main surgeon for the amputation surgery, and he will assist and guide. Gu Jun was taken aback and asked Sir Dan if it was okay for him to perform the amputation surgery, as he has never been the main surgeon for it before. Sir Dan turned his head to look at Lin Mo and asked him to make the decision. Lin Mo gave a light hum to urge Sir Dan to start quickly. Seeing this, Gu Jun no longer hesitated. "Dr. Lin, rest assured, I will do my best." Lin Mo nodded without saying more. After Sir Dan made a good plan, Gu Jun performed the vascular and nerve transection. The step of cutting off the leg bone will come soon. Emergency Command Center. Commander Yao took off his headphones after 2 consecutive surgeries. "Old Chin, you've chosen a good seedling." Professor Chin nodded. Gu Jun's learning ability is particularly strong. Originally, he was being cultivated for the Mobile Task Force. Minister Old Chinming is a little worried. If both legs are amputated, Lin Mo will have a better chance of survival. If the parasite is not completely removed, not only Lin Mo may die, but others may also get infected. Professor Chin takes off his headphones. We know no more than Captain Shui based solely on the audio. Since Captain Shui believes in Gu Jun, there should be no problem for now. Minister Ming nods. What I fear most about the relationship between Gu Jun and Lisheng is not that he has ulterior motives and a plan, but that he doesn't even know what he's doing. When this was said, everyone fell silent. It is indeed a frightening situation. In the end, Yao Shinian interrupted the divergence. What we need to consider now is that the passage has disappeared. How can we get the team out? The square passage. The task force has been monitoring it with a life detector all along. Captain Shui is coming over to inquire about the situation. The burrowing megaworm has been lurking, and there is more than one. This gives Captain Shui a bad feeling. He ordered the action team to take turns guarding at the entrance and below the tunnel, while everyone else stayed put and rested on standby. On the other side, Sir Dan asked Gu Jun to rest first. The remaining tasks of bandaging were taken over by him and Fire. Gu Jun nodded. He sat down leaning against the steps. He looked at the system prompt that the contribution of the leg amputation surgery was 55%. The combined contribution of these 2 surgeries amounts to 110%, which means there is still a remaining 40% to complete the difficult mission. He couldn't help but wonder if the Calip brand dissecting knife as a reward would be from Ironborn Landon. It should also be able to trigger illusions, right? 16 hours later. Captain Shui gathered everyone to explain the situation. Now, the only way is to keep moving downward. If bricks with different characters are mechanisms, there should be other mechanisms below. We save water and food and can last about a week, so we need to start moving now. Captain Shui is considering whether or not to leave someone at the cave entrance in case the giant worm leaves the tunnel, and it closes up again. The disappearance of the tunnel and the appearance of the giant worm were clearly planned. There is no point in leaving someone behind. Gu Jun clenched his fist. Since there is no choice, we might as well go together and concentrate our firepower. After all, anything can happen. Captain Shui patted Gu Jun's shoulder. Makes sense. Then it's settled. All members, prepare your gear and get ready to move forward. Gu Jun then realized that Captain Shui was just asking him tentatively. Gu Jun looked down at the steps and realized that even if it was a trap, they could only continue moving forward. The mist lingered on both sides of the steps, making it hard to judge the depth. The sky above was also constantly overcast. Captain Shui and Lu Yuning are leading the way ahead. Gu Jun and Fire are carrying Lin Mo on a stretcher, while Sir Dan follows beside. The Demon Hunter group is moving towards the dark depths of the tunnel. Captain Shui will report the situation at the next checkpoint. He is not sure if he can successfully send the message. The angles and proportions of all the stone steps here are consistent. Even a card cannot be inserted into the gaps between the bricks. Gu Jun also noticed that there are dark red patterns spreading across the stone bricks here. It makes him feel like the space is alive in this repetitive and monotonous descent. Sir Dan occasionally shares some embarrassing stories from his past. This makes everyone laugh out loud. An hour later, Captain Shui actually found that the instrument showed that the oxygen level had increased. Nemo, lying on the stretcher, sat up. This is unscientific. According to spatial structure, the further down you go, the thinner the oxygen should be. Gu Jun actually heard a rhythmic pounding sound. This is the sound of a heartbeat. He looked down and saw the steps under his feet faintly glowing, as if blood were flowing in these densely populated veins. Gu Jun found a reason for Fire to put down the stretcher carrying Lin Mo. He reached out and pressed it on the steps. Sure enough, the temperature of the stone bricks had increased compared to when he had surgery before. And when he entered the space inside the tall walls, he felt the wind for the first time. "There is wind," he shouted. "Captain Shui, the wind is coming. It's breathing. It's about to start taking big breaths." Captain Shui rushed to him and said, "Calm down. Clearly state who is breathing. I can feel that this tunnel is alive. Haven't you heard the sound of a heartbeat?" Lu Yuning looked at Gu Jun and smiled. "Alive? We're not deaf. Where does the heartbeat come from? Where's the wind?" Gu Jun anxiously looked at Captain Shui. "I'm telling the truth. A big wind is coming." Captain Shui furrowed his brows. He knew that Gu Jun had a high sense of contradiction and stability. He was not certain about the current situation, but he immediately instructed everyone to sit by the stairs and be prepared. After Gu Jun and Fire settled Lin Mo down together, he sat between Lin Mo and Sir Dan, looking at Gu Jun's outstretched hand. Lin Mo did not hesitate and held Dr. Gu's hand tightly. "I believe in you. Since the last time, I have already been sure that anything can happen here." "Indeed," Captain Shui shouted. "Hurry up and sit down. The wind is coming." The sudden black gust rushed up from deep down the steps. The surging gust instantly engulfed the crowd, blowing away the things of the team, scattered all over the place. At the same time, Gu Jun's head started to ache again, feeling just like when he encountered danger underwater. Countless indescribable scenes rushed into the depths of the mind. Gu Jun felt a power of life. It is the power of human civilization, as well as the power of alien civilizations. It is also the terrifying unknown and indescribable power. Gu Jun suddenly released his tightly clenched hands and stood up. He took a step forward and crossed over Captain Shui and the others. In the midst of their shouts, he stood at the very front. He looked toward the depths of the steps, and Gu Jun recited a strange language. Obscure, ancient, mysterious. In the howling wind, there is also a hint of eeriness. Gradually, a light emerges, becoming brighter and brighter with a white glow. It shines so brightly that even with their eyes closed, everyone sees nothing but white. When Captain Shui regained his vision, the wind had stopped. Gu Jun was still standing in front. He turned his head and looked at everyone. Some implicit memories have been revived, and I now have a deeper understanding of foreign languages." Lu Yuning stood up suddenly, raised the gun and pointed it at Gu Jun. "Kid, don't move. You are not allowed to say another word of heresy, not even in your mind." Gu Jun looked at Lu Yuning, slightly furrowing his brows. He didn't like this kind of confrontation. Gu Jun looked at Lu Yuning with a cold face, although he understood what they were thinking. But this kind of confrontation, even if it's just a test, is unpleasant. Captain Shui grabbed the muzzle. "Okay, I think he just stopped the strong wind just now." After saying that, he turned to look at Gu Jun. "But I am also very curious. What did the words you just read mean?" Gu Jun looked at Captain Shui. The foreign text just meant, "Stop." No matter how absurd, what was just mentioned about having a deeper understanding of foreign texts. The strong wind just now awakened some implicit memories, and Gu Jun foreign languages can combine with other life forces or materials to create a new force. He can achieve it in this alternate space. As for whether it will still work after going back, it is still unclear now. Captain Shui stroked his chin. Powerful language with a power. Isn't this a spell? Gu Jun shook his head. He wasn't sure if it counted as a spell. The alien text gave him a sense of being alive. Perhaps the life goddess who created this language endowed it with vitality and perception, enabling it to interact with the powers or substances of other life forms. Captain Shui glanced at Gu Jun, life goddess. An interesting metaphor, meaning that it is the alien text that brought this underground passage to life? With the power of life. Gu Jun is not sure. Perhaps these stones themselves have life, just in a different way than our understanding of life. Captain Shui self-mockingly said, "Thank goodness I, Shui Ba, spent a few years in the supernatural investigation team. Otherwise, I wouldn't believe what you said even if you beat me to death." Gu Jun continued, "Open the stone door and stop the raging wind." In his view, it seemed like triggering a mechanism. The prerequisite is to first perceive the vitality of the language and then combine it with the vitality of the object. Then speak the language. It seems that silent reading can also trigger it. This may be due to emitting brain waves. Captain Shui summed up. According to your analysis, one must first perceive the vitality of the foreign text, secondly communicate with the combined object of the spell, and thirdly speak the incantation. This series of gnosis responses, if successful, will activate the spell. Indeed, the academic genius Gu Jun lived up to his name. After listening, he immediately understood. You're right, Captain Shui, your summary is very apt. Captain Shui let out a sigh and said, All right, I now believe that you are on our side. So please live up to my trust. Gu Jun nodded and said, I understand. He turned to look at Lu Yuning and said, Sister Lu, I heard about your situation. As a doctor, I am very sorry. Lu Yuning turned around and said, Kid, be smart. There are no idle people in our team. Although her tone was still sharp, Gu Jun understood that she saw herself as a member of the team. After a brief rest, the Demon Hunter team continues the journey. Lu Yuning reported the situation of the loss of supplies to Captain Shui. Captain Shui looked ahead and asked everyone to pick up the pace. They will walk for nearly 7 hours. Captain Shui and the team have arrived at the first 10,000 steps, descending 5,000 meters underground. Looking at the towering wall ahead, they felt like they were finally nearing the end. They didn't continue descending for much longer. Captain Shui, look, there is light below. Lu Yuning found that 2 bright spots appeared below. Captain Shui was invigorated, and the action team members were reminded to prepare for battle. The members of the action team immediately grabbed their guns and followed Captain Shui all the way down. He saw a wooden door embedded in the massive stone wall, with an oil lamp on each side. Gu Jun looked at the kerosene lamp and the basement. He thought of Ironborn Landon's underground dissecting room in his mind. Right. It was mentioned in Pena's diary. Hoke City, which became a ghost town due to hemoptysis, is where Landon conducted research on hemoptysis and monsters. The pronunciation of the word, Hoke, in foreign text means stone, right? As Gu Jun thought more, his headache became more severe. Captain Shui looked at Gu Jun, whose expression looked unsightly, and asked him what was wrong. Did he sense something? Gu Jun rubbed his head and said he just had a headache. He didn't sense anything. Captain Shui pondered and said, Suddenly having a headache, I never believe in coincidences. Can you try to sense the situation behind the red door? Gu Jun took a few steps forward and tried to sense it. But apart from the increasingly intense headache, he couldn't feel anything at all. It's as if the red gate has cut off all his senses. Captain Shui saw Gu Jun suddenly kneel down and quickly asked him what happened. Gu Jun gritted his teeth. That red gate seems to have cut off all my senses. Captain Shui looked somewhat disappointed as he raised his head and said, All right. Action team members, move forward and inspect. Be careful. Liu Yuning led a group of people to inspect the lights at the doorway. There are no abnormalities. The wick in the kerosene lamp is very long, as if it has just been replaced. Then she raised her hand and looked at Captain Shui. Captain Shui nodded in agreement. After counting to 3, she pushed the door hard, but there was no response. The door should be very thick, or connected to the surrounding walls. Captain Shui also stepped forward to give it a try side, and concluded that it was no use. Try looking through the keyhole, but be careful not to look directly. It might trigger a mechanism. After several attempts by Liu Yuning. Finally, use a straightened iron wire to slowly insert it into the keyhole. Behind the door is empty, at least 1 meter of space. Captain Shui turned his head and asked Gu Jun if he was feeling better. Could he sense anything? Gu Jun told Captain Shui that the door should be opened with a spell, but he didn't know what the spell was. Captain Shui asked the others to retreat from the steps first. Let Gu Jun try. The Mad Arab's poetry. Gu Jun nodded and walked to the front door. He tried to communicate in a foreign language. After finishing Gu Jun, he felt that this was not the case. He was mentally exhausted, but the door did not respond. Then he passed through the strange words and recited Landon's full name and that prophecy. Captain Shui looked at Gu Jun, who was kneeling down again with a pale face. Captain Shui quickly stopped him, saying, "Enough! Stop trying! Do you want to have a splitting headache and die from it, kid?" Captain Shui knew he could not let Gu Jun try again. "Damn it!" Captain Shui, Liu Yuning, stepped up and let me take a look at the doorway. We can't continue like this. Everyone understands, except Gu Jun cannot have any issues. He, who understands foreign languages, is the hope for everyone to return. Liu Yuning reminded Captain Shui, the caregiver, that if she goes crazy, she should shoot her and remember to aim for the head. Captain Shui raised the gun to reassure her, promising that it will just hurt a little. Liu Yuning took a deep breath and stopped thinking too much. She brought her right eye closer to the door hole. And at this moment, inexplicable whispers sounded in Gu Jun's ears. "This woman suspects you. After you saved them, she pointed a gun at you. She doesn't trust you." Captain Shui was suddenly stunned when he saw Liu Yuning. She then let out a scream, and he quickly pulled Liu Yuning away from the doorway. Sir Dan also rushed over carrying a first aid kit. The two of them worked together to pull apart her hands covering her eyes. Without any struggle, her right eyeball bulged out, and she started to appear delirious. Sir Dan turned his head and asked Fire to secure Liu Yuning with a stretcher. The Sir Dan, who was inspecting, actually turned his head to warn. Everyone try not to look into Xiaoning's eyes. Anyone who stares at her transformed right eye will also experience delirium, gradually breaking down as a result. Sir Dan greeted Gu Jun, prepared for local anesthesia, and quickly removed the necrotic eyeball before she lost consciousness. Gu Jun, who was whispered to by Sir Dan, responded softly. He walked up to Liu Yuning and squatted down, involuntarily wondering who was whispering. Is it this tunnel? Or that child of misfortune? Sir Dan handed over the anesthetic needle. Gu Jun, however, stared blankly without any response. Fire rushed forward and knocked Gu Jun away, then handed me the needle. Sir Dan instructed him to anesthetize the back of the ball, inject at 3 points, with 1 milliliter and 0.5 milliliters respectively in the interframe and hemisphere. Fire endured to complete the injection. The abnormality of the eyeball had a significant impact on him. Sir Dan patted Gu Jun's head and said, "Little Gu, I can't perform this surgery. You need to give it a try." Gu Jun asked, "Who are you, insignificant bug? Let her die. Only death can make her ascend." "Are you okay, Gu Jun?" The voice of Captain Shui and the sound of whispering. A jumble of sounds in his ears, gradually making Gu Jun unable to distinguish between reality and illusion. Gu Jun's vision became blurred. He didn't know what was happening. Everyone seemed frozen. Time has stopped. Hey, have you made up your mind? Suddenly, someone behind him spoke. Gu Jun turned his head and saw his younger self. Let those who doubt you die, so their souls can be uplifted. Gu Jun was stunned. Who are you, after all? The boy smiled and said, I am you. I am the one who has come to help you relieve your pain. Sickness, fear, and confusion, as long as you are willing, I can help you get away from these pains right now. He walked over and said, Gu Jun, entrust your body to me, and you will no longer have to endure these pains. The boy pointed to the red door and enticed. Go take a look at that doorway, and you will be liberated. Gu Jun silently turned around and walked towards the door. No, Gu Jun suddenly said. No matter who you are. Whether you are the son of misfortune, a true god, or a false god. Even if I have fallen into a trap, my soul controls this body, and you will not take it away. The boy continues to tempt. I'm doing this for your own good. They are all suspicious. Don't you want to relax a bit? Gu Jun grabbed the boy's hand and scolded. Shut up! I have saved Liu Yuning's life. I am a doctor. The boy's face changed suddenly. Gu Jun, we know you better than yourself. After saying that, it gradually dissipated. On the other side, Sir Dan made a muffled sound and almost fell down. Captain Shui quickly supported him. Old Dan, don't get yourself involved in this. Sir Dan told Captain Shui that all it takes is to remove this eyeball. Captain Shui said to Fire, Give me the scalpel, I'll stab it down. Captain Shui wanted to gouge out the abnormal eye, but his whole body was trembling uncontrollably. At this moment, his hand was held by someone. It was Gu Jun who had arrived. Let me do it, Captain Shui said. Captain Shui's heart relaxed a bit. Dr. Gu, you are late. Prepared Gu Jun apologized. Sir Dan, sorry for delaying a bit. Please guide me. Under the guidance of Sir Dan, Gu Jun, who was performing his first ophthalmic surgery, quickly entered a state of calm hands. After separating the muscles, blood vessels, and nerves around the eyeball one by one, he reached out and removed the abnormal eyeball. With a ding sound in his mind, the surgical removal of the abnormal eyeball was successful. Contribution: 75%. The surgery was successful, and the psychological impact of the abnormal eyeball has also disappeared. Sir Dan looks at Gu Jun admirably. I'm fine now. You take a break, Fire, and I will handle the rest. Gu Jun nods. In his mind, the system is still prompting. Difficult task completed. Surgery contribution reached 185%. Calip brand dissecting knife available for collection. Half an hour later, Gu Jun revealed the temptation he had succumbed to before. I believe you, Captain Shui said without hesitation. Since you can sense it, can you trigger the mechanism by looking at the doorway? Gu Jun is pondering. Although the specifics are not clear yet, the other party wants to turn him into another person. This may be related to his previous identity as a spirit child. They don't want to harm him, but rather want his soul to leave his body. Looking at the doorway is like delivering goods to the door. Captain Shui nodded. Then the only way left is to blow up the door. But wouldn't this be playing into their hands? Gu Jun understood. What they want is for the team to feel scared, chaotic, and suspicious of each other. It's those negative emotions that matter, not whether we blow up the door or not. After Captain Shui listened to Gu Jun's guess, isn't this just aiming to lower our value to drive us into madness? Then let's act a little crazy. Saying this, he asked the action team to prepare C4 explosives to blow up the door. San value? Gu Jun looked a bit confused. Sir Dan told him that it is an abbreviation for the score of the psychological test taken when he is being converted into a regular employee. Oh! It hurts so bad. Everyone turned around to see that Liu Yuning had woken up. She complained. You bunch of bastards are here too. I must not be in heaven. Captain Shui gave a slight smile. You finally woke up. Welcome to hell. Gu Junlu looked at him. I vaguely felt that it was you who helped me with the surgery just now. Thank you. Sister Lu saw that Lu Yuning's condition had improved, and Gu Jun couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement in his heart. He clenched his fist and muttered, "Whether it's the Afterlife Society or anyone else, we have never been the same kind. Not even before birth." 100 steps ahead, Gu Jun stood here and could no longer see the red gate. Captain Shui looked at the time quietly, waiting patiently. At this moment, he turned his head and asked, "What did you see when you looked into the doorway just now?" Lu Yuning's face was filled with pain, his left eye full of confusion. It's hard to describe. In the chaotic light within the white light, suddenly unable to move like being pressed by a ghost, constantly having nightmares. At this time, the explosives expert of the action team has already installed the C4 and handed the controller to Captain Shui. Captain Shui, with a serious expression, led the assault team members in preparation. He shouted, 3, 2, 1, and pressed the detonator. After a loud explosion was heard, Captain Shui took the lead and charged down. At the end of the corridor, a large hole had already been broken open. The red door had turned into pieces. Originally, inside is a spacious stone chamber with a spiraling stone staircase in the middle. Other than that, there is nothing else. Captain Shui looked up at the stone staircase. It's probably about 5 kilometers underground here. If the spiral staircase leads to the surface, then it's at least 5 kilometers high. Captain Shui will notify the others to come down after ensuring safety. Gu Jun felt relieved after looking at the collapsed walls. It's not Landon's basement. The red door is just a trap to lure them in. But this could still be Hoke City. He also needs to get that scalpel. Perhaps it could provide some clues about the illusion. Feeling like being manipulated everywhere is terrible. Perhaps this scalpel could be the key to breaking the deadlock. Gu Jun squatted down and played with the gravel, in his mind claiming the reward. The dissecting knife appeared in his right hand, and he noticed its size and shape. Almost identical to the number 23 knife, but the material is different. There is foreign text, Calip, on the handle. Payne mentioned in his diary that Calip College of Medicine might use this knife as a specialized tool. Could this be the iron dissecting knife from Ironborn? It feels too light and a bit uncomfortable to hold. But it seems that the knife can quickly blend into the fingers. Gu Jun is not sure if this is due to the original function of the dissecting knife or her own ability. Gu Jun tried to trigger an illusion, but severe headache struck. No! Too much energy was consumed earlier. Triggering an illusion now would definitely result in sudden death. Gu Jun, what's wrong? Captain Shui walked over. He raised the dissecting knife in his hand and found that it was inscribed with Calip, which should be the brand or the owner's name of the knife. Sir Dan took it and found it to be too light, and the shape made it uncomfortable to hold. Captain Shui suddenly asked, Gu Jun, how are you sure this is a dissecting knife and not a surgical knife? Gu Jun was taken aback. This was something he hadn't considered before. He shook his head. Intuition. I just feel that it's a dissecting knife. Captain Shui didn't ask any more questions. You keep the knife for now. See if you can feel any clues. Be careful not to be misled by it. After saying that, he looked at the others. Everyone take a break and get ready to move forward. After setting off, Captain Shui still led the way, stopping and going along the way. Lin Mo was carried by team members in turns, always keeping an eye on Sir Dan's situation. Lu Yuning, who disarmed herself, insisted on walking with fire all the way. After walking for a full 24 hours, a small platform with Demon Hunter appeared ahead. The team finally reached the top. Captain Shui discovered a floral pattern on the innermost stone slab. Gu Jun was a bit puzzled. Could this be Payne's hometown, the city of flowers, Shar City? Captain Shui led the team forward for inspection, and found that the gaps in the stone slab were larger than those below, speculating that this should be the exit. The demolition expert urgently said, What are we waiting for? Let's blow it open. Captain Shui said, I wonder if we can turn around and ask Gu Jun. What do you think? No. Gu Jun denied that on the way up, he vaguely felt the vitality of the stone path slowly disappearing. The stone bricks here also have vein patterns, but they have lost their blood color. Their vitality has been exhausted to this point, and definitely cannot withstand an explosion. Captain Shui looked at the stone slab. Since it cannot be blown up, the only option is to try to push it open. Several people sat under the stone slab. They counted to 3 and exerted force at the same time. They pushed it up with all their might. There is light. This is the exit. Captain Shui discovered that the stone slab was too heavy after just one attempt. They couldn't push it open with just a few people. Suddenly, the stone stairs started shaking. Captain Shui quickly instructed everyone to sit against the wall. The shaking gradually stopped. A bad thought crossed Captain Shui's mind. Gu Jun rushed up at this time. Stopping is only temporary, Captain Shui. We must get out as soon as possible. This stone ladder won't hold up much longer. Captain Shui made a prompt decision and ordered everyone to come up. Besides the injured, we will push the stone slabs together. Lu Yuting sat down against the wall despite dissuasion. One more person means one more force. After confirming that everyone is ready, Captain Shui counted down from 3 to 1. His whole body muscles exploded, and he shouted, "Push!" Everyone suddenly exerted their maximum strength, either gritting their teeth and roaring while pushing with both hands. Gu Jun and Sir Dan are also gritting their teeth and persisting. At this moment, suddenly illusion surged in front of his eyes. In the illusion, Gu Jun found that he was still under the patterned slab. Was this illusion triggered by the slab? Around him were no longer his teammates, but a group of children in strange outfits. They were speaking a chaotic, panicked foreign language with cries and pleading voices that made it difficult for Gu Jun to understand. I only heard some phrases like, "I don't want to die, let me out," and "It's coming." Gu Jun found that this appointment seemed different from the past. It was as if his consciousness was attached to a teenager. As a series of bangs rang out at the stone steps, everyone turned to look. In an instant, the piercing screams tore through every throat. They frantically pounded on the stone slabs, trying to escape but with nowhere to go. Gu Jun felt himself also looking over, his heart suddenly tightening. Absolutely no mistake. It was that type of creature with bone plates in front of its chest. This was the first time he had seen the full appearance of the creature in the illusion. He saw the creature take a stride and rush over, effortlessly throwing down child after child from the stone steps. The power and speed of this creature were truly formidable. It turned its head to look at Gu Jun, who was not screaming. The creature grabbed him and held him over the edge of the steps. "You should be more scared. Be afraid," it said before throwing Gu Jun down. Gu Jun rapidly fell, losing consciousness. The stone slab pushed Gu Jun aside, and he heard someone shouting in surprise. Sir Dan stood up and said, "Little Gu, we can go out now." He stood up and looked around. Surrounded by the looming fig tree forest obscured by thick fog, they were standing in the middle of an abandoned altar. Sir Dan muttered, "Are we the sacrifices?" Captain Shui heard movement in the surrounding woods. Someone loudly alerted, "Be careful!" Gradually, the sound of howling pierced through the mist. Among the towering trees, a large pack of giant wolves emerged. Vaguely, the figures of people in black and red clothing could still be seen. As these people approached, the thick fog began to spread towards the altar. It was Gu Jun from Lesheng Company who informed Captain Shui. In his memory, most of them were dressed in black, while the leader wore red clothing. Captain Shui knew it was time to face the enemy head-on. He immediately ordered all members of the action team to prepare to confront the enemy, while the others protected the wounded in the center of the altar. Suddenly, a giant wolf leaped towards the altar amidst its fierce howls. Captain Shui ordered to shoot, but the wolf seemed to know no fear. Even as its flesh was torn apart by bullets, it continued to charge forward without hesitation. These giant wolves have tough hides and thick flesh. It seems that only headshots can completely take care of him. Soon, a giant wolf leaped onto the altar, braving the firepower. They rushed towards the firepower expert ferociously, but fortunately someone timely shot down the giant wolf. Captain Shui rushed over and focused on shooting at their heads. Make sure to guard the stairs. If there are more casualties, the team will be surrounded. But the situation isn't good now either. Someone quickly reported that Captain Shui is using up ammunition too quickly. We must find a way to break through. But there are many giant wolves surrounding us. Captain Shui instructed everyone to break through from the stairs behind him. At this moment, a strange rhythm came from the mist. The stone path was pitch black and silent, as if it were the beginning of life. In Mom's dream, there were poisonous snakes, worms, and demons. The sudden strange chant surprised Sir Dan and the others greatly. From morning till night, there is a lot of pain. Nightmares grow stronger every day, waiting to break out from the earth. The demon hunter group protects the wounded in the middle, retreating while fighting to the sound of songs. Every day, Mother wonders if the delicate creature in her womb is growing or if a ghoul resides within. Sometimes she sadly thinks that the birth of life cannot be separated from pain. Indeed, Lu Ying made everyone stop. They unexpectedly circled back to the center of the altar. It was those songs that Captain Shui's voice made everyone focus, dispelling distractions, and not listening. They don't understand the meaning, but not listening is not as easy as it sounds. The authentic entrance doesn't know when to close. The distant song gradually becomes louder, mysterious. The birth of life cannot be separated from pain. Gu Jun muttered absent-mindedly. Suddenly he remembered. This is a folk song sung during the coming-of-age ceremony in a different world. And the altar is the venue for the coming-of-age ceremony. Walking down 10,000 steps, entering deep underground, entering the stone chamber symbolizes returning to the place symbolizing the mother's nurturing of life. Climbing the spiraling stone staircase symbolizes the process of birth, so it is not allowed to walk down the spiraling stone staircase, only to be pushed open from the bottom up. Pushing open the altar is also a part of the ritual, just like a new life squeezing out. But what Gu Jun did not understand is how he knew all of this. And why does he seem to have personally participated before? Is this a childhood experience? Gu Jun opened his eyes and looked around, trying to figure out what he was. Suddenly, a strange voice that Captain Shui and the others could understand came. They stopped attacking, and figures led by a person in red robes approached the altar from all directions. Lu Ying angrily said, "These animals are looking for death. Shoot them." Captain Shui also ordered the shooting, and everyone opened fire directly. Shocking enough, the bullets actually passed through these people. Lu Ying murmured, "This is just unbelievable." Captain Shui also noticed. These haggard-looking guys all have the same faces. I saw a person in red pointing at Gu Jun and saying, "Gu Jun, open your eyes and see what you are. Are you really one of them?" These words were just meant to make Captain Shui and the others feel a bit confused. But these words entered Gu Jun's mind like a power drill. "Gu Jun, did you really exist? Open your eyes." Gu Jun feels his brain swelling, trembling all over, half kneeling down. The light and shadow in front of his eyes are churning. Captain Shui and Sir Dan seem to be shouting anxiously about something. Gu Jun feels like he has been split in half, with the other half turning into that nightmare appearance. He struggled hard, but was locked in his shoulders and couldn't move. The self that once sat in the banyan tree hole chuckled. He actually turned into a terrifying and bizarre face that swallowed him. On the altar, Sir Dan supported the motionless Gu Jun Captain Shui and loudly asked Gu Jun what was wrong. Indeed, Gu Jun stood up. His face became cold, stiff, and expressionless. "You who have betrayed your faith!" A hoarse and gloomy voice resonated from Gu Jun's mouth. He seemed like a different person. His eerie eyes stared at a figure in red ahead. "You faithless ones!" came a hoarse and frosty voice from Gu Jun's mouth. "Little Gu, what's wrong with Captain Shui intercepting Sir Dan?" This person is probably not the Gu Jun they know anymore. We believe that a deserter is a better choice than a traitor, the person in red clothes said fearlessly. Whether you are Gu Jun or the son of misfortune, your birth is also nurtured by us and summoned here. You are not a deity, you are merely a sacrifice we offer to ourselves. I don't know when this old altar seemed to suddenly come to life. The blood-like dim light in the surrounding fine lines is flowing. The person in red triumphantly says, "Look at your feet, the altar has awakened. It will drain every ounce of strength from your body, and your power will ultimately belong to me." As the person in red finishes speaking, the pillars and patterns on the ground around the altar shine brightly in the shocked eyes of Sir Dan and the others. Gu Jun grabbed his head and started howling. The man in red opened his arms. How could the mere human soul possibly resist it? The ritual is about to be completed. Gu Jun clenched his teeth as he fought for control of his own body. Trembling, he opened the side pocket of the bag. I am not the son of misfortune. He took out a scalpel, raised it up, and shouted, I am Gu Jun. In an instant, he seemed to enter a hallucination, as if he was in someone's memory. Was it the owner of the scalpel, Ironborn Landon, or the unfortunate son whose body he had taken control of? I missed the days when I studied at Calip Academy, immersed in medical research every day. But I know that is no longer possible. I must admit my failure. I cannot defeat those diseases and monstrous creations, nor can I grasp the true mysteries that transcend our intellectual capabilities. Perhaps death will provide me with another answer. Everyone should have their own pursuits. Do not be discouraged by my decision, especially tell Reebok Pena that his abilities are enough to take over my work. Do not give up. But I have to go first, Ironborn Laurie Landon. Gu Jun felt like he saw an illusion, yet it seemed like those illusions were happening to him. On a cliff by the silent sea, he suddenly raised the dissecting knife in his hand. He fiercely wiped it on his own neck. Fresh blood gushed out immediately, and his body swayed as he knelt to the ground. Destruction, destruction, repeated over and over again. His voice became lower and lower. At that moment, he suddenly felt something appearing behind him. Within the enveloping darkness was an indescribable blurry figure, unclear if truly standing there or a distorted phantom in the twisted spacetime. Ironborn in your understanding, we are gods who can destroy all things, demons, ancient rulers. He turned to look. Why are you willing to see me, a desperate mortal who seeks true knowledge and gives up life? The inexplicable being said to him, in order for you to obtain the truth that is not afraid to be exchanged for life, we have prepared a seat for you by our side. You will see those greater mysteries beyond human cognition, and you will become the child of destiny. Landon smiled and said, I want to see those mysteries. A gloomy figure emerged from the fallen Landon. Suddenly the illusion shattered. Gu Jun saw himself still on the altar, surrounded by the low chant echoing around, every rhythm tinged with strangeness and fervor. Gu Jun finally understands now. There are two personalities existing in Landon's soul within his body. Ironborn of the face of light.